into mobile content in a way that really pleases users and reaches a lot of them. And I've seen my girlfriend over the last couple of days get addicted to Heyday, and she's playing it all the time, and she looks forward to seeing video ads, which is good for us, although she hasn't downloaded any of the games. Well, we're working on that. We want to keep the acquisition price down. There's also cool stuff happening there with things like ISU suppression, so people are getting much smarter about acquiring users, knowing, well, if I'm going to show tons and tons of ads, the thing that affects my price and how much volume I get is how efficient I am at driving downloads. By getting smarter and blocking out all 10 billion people who have downloaded Candy Crush, for example, in your ads, you make sure that you're only showing them to people who will be interested. So people are getting a lot smarter and a lot more creative at the same time, and whenever those two things are happening in conjunction, I think that's really, really exciting.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, we only asked the best of 2013. Certainly there was, the Trip has an opinion on the worst of 2013. What would you say the worst of 2013 was?
Well, just to go back to what DP was talking about, obviously the cost of acquisition has been steadily going up for the last few years, and it's kind of a winner-take-all platform, in that the revenue, I've never seen it get this way. I mean, the revenue in the industry is much more consolidated in the top 5 or 10 games than ever before, and it just has to do with what mobile merchandising is like. If the user basically is going to use an app store, they're only going to look at what's on the first screen, basically. And if you're, if you're not picking something off the top of the free chart, you're getting it through some other means, through a friend or whatever, or you're getting it through ads. And well, who can afford to run ads? It's the handful of guys that have figured out a particular game that monetizes well. But even the best companies can't seem to do that consistently. Of course, a famous example is Rovio made 50 games. It failed, and then they made Angry Birds, and they've made some games since then that haven't done as well as Angry Birds. So again, this happens to almost every company. Zynga certainly, even with more money and bigger teams and best practices and a lot of metrics, they've had a really hard time being consistent on the monetization side. So this is the biggest challenge for the industry. It's where the biggest upside is to get better at that. And it really is taking the concept of virtual goods economies and getting as smart about it as the industry got about 3D graphics 20 years ago, and really taking that from being essentially an art that people occasionally get right to more of a science. And the profession of game design has to shift over to being obsessed with the merchandising of virtual goods, the same way that a retailer worries about merchandising in a great department store.
All right, thank you. Can we have a mic over to Dan? I'd like to ask the speakers to hold the mic close to their mouth and capture in the recording. So Dan, worst of 2013?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and you go far back enough in my personal history. I was a games journalist and was covering PC games for years and years, and my heart and my passion is really with development, going all the way back, a couple of formats now. And so for me, the worst of 2013 was seeing that in mobile gaming, creativity and the inspired drive to make great gameplay mechanics is ahead of the basic sort of business and market acumen. That's no knock on anyone. It's a chaotic marketplace with very, very few legitimate paths to success beyond a lot of luck and placement. So it's insanely hard, and we're working at Facebook to make it a little less hard. But for me, the hard part was watching so many great games and so many great creators and so many great ideas not find their audience. And that's just a theme that I keep coming back to. It's a theme that Facebook keeps coming back to and thinking about and talking about and working on. And I would reiterate, Trip's insight that really thinking very deeply about the economy of free-to-play games is probably not coming natural to a lot of game developers, and really will in 2014. And I actually, to flip the worst into a personal hope, I actually think that we're going to see that happen. I just feel it's inevitable. You're all going to teach one another how to do it, and hopefully some of us up here are going to give you some better tools to do it with. But mapping your game and your genre and your personal creative talents to a sustainable path to market and a sustainable path to an audience, that's going to be the big trick for 2014. And we will be trying to help you do that.
Jason, I think you wanted to just share your thoughts on worst of 2013?
Yeah, and again, I'm going to focus on my particular area, external development. And I attribute a lot of the worst of 2013 to what I like to call the gold rush effect. The gold rush effect, so as you all know, there's lots of small companies that have had huge successes in 2013, that made millions with their mobile games. And a lot of service providers who are traditionally providing art services or engineering services to developers looked at these companies and they said, we want to make millions. It's easy. There's low barriers to entry. I don't need to get dev kits. I don't need to get approval from first parties. I can develop the game with my small team and release it and make millions. So a lot of them either change their business model to only focusing on developing mobile games, or they set up a separate business unit to develop mobile games, which were funded by the outsourcing side. And because of that, a lot of them went out to the market. At the same time, there was a huge increase in the number of companies looking for 2D art services and other services from these companies. And as such, the rates went and spiked. Since 2011, I've been conducting a survey of art, animation, engineering companies providing outsourcing services. And normally there's over 100 companies responding to this survey. In 2013, the results showed that for 2D art, rates in China spiked 20%, and in India they went up 46%, which is a huge increase, which makes it a lot more expensive to work with these companies and too fewer companies providing services. So for me, that was huge.
All right, great. Well, let's pass the mic back to Trip. I'm going to go back to Trip because we've got you guys on the worst. We're going to look at 2014 now. So what are you most excited about? There's a lot of things happening. We have robots, we have drones, hoverboards. What are you most excited about 2014?
I think there's finally some opportunities to expand into some new market segments. So I would just reference what we thought through about what we're doing. So our target is moms. And there's just a tremendous amount of buying power now with women, moms being a subset of women, that have very actively use mobile devices and have their devices borrowed by their children. And everybody's talking about this Christmas being an iPad Christmas, so I guarantee you that's probably more driven by moms thinking about it as a family purchase than it is some selfish adult that just wants to play games like we do. So that's an example of an emerging market, and there's potential for more effective business models. So for example, we're not using virtual goods in our game. My view, frankly, is that if you've got an 8-year-old, the last thing you want is to have your 8-year-old, and a lot of 8-year-olds know the password for your iTunes account. So you don't want your 8-year-old racking up hundreds of dollars of bills that you don't know about. But the other is you don't want your 8-year-old bugging you every day or two to transact. So frankly, a subscription model is a lot simpler for both the kid and for the adult. So again, I think there's kind of a relationship here where you can probably identify market opportunities for women as target users, but also women as the new shepherds of how technology gets used in the home, and women are increasingly involved in the choices about applications that their kids are playing, and it opens up something completely new.
Yeah, fantastic. Dan, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about lots. But to pick one, I really feel like a lot of game genres that have 25 or 30 years of wonderful history in a lot of different formats are just waiting to be untapped in the mobile space. And I think there has been a lot of fast follows, and a gold rush has been underway, in certain genres, and that will continue. But I really get a chance every day to look at developers who are kind of returning to a really rich well of very proven game genres, and are starting to think about how to map those genres to a free-to-play economy. The last piece of that really wonderful picture is that the tools to actually get to market and intelligently acquire users and make the most out of them are finally maturing. And we're really delighted with what Facebook's advertising tool to the mobile app install ads is able to do. That's a big step forward, and there will be other steps too. But the ability to sort of really widen just the number of games and the different types of games, attach those to a free-to-play economy that makes sense for that genre, and then take tools like Facebook ads and actually go and get your audience. It's a market that's really starting to come together, and I'm excited about that for all kinds of reasons, and I really think it's going to be a breakthrough year for a lot of developers and genres.
All right, great. And then, oh, wait, for 2014, if they want to submit, the devs in the audience want to submit their games to the publishing platform, how do they do it? Is there an online submission?
There is. I'll share it with you, or just come talk to me.
Okay, all right, great. Jason, what are you most excited about for 2014?
So you mentioned hoverboards, and I just returned from
Hoverboards.
Shanghai yesterday, where it took me often an hour to get across the city. So I'm really excited for the day that I can jump on my hoverboard, control it with my mobile device, and get to the company meetings quicker. But aside from that, I'm really looking forward to tapping into some of these emerging markets, like in Brazil, in China, and Korea. There's huge potential in these markets, so I'm looking forward to partnering with experts in those markets to develop great games for those markets, and then vice versa, some of those fantastic games from the developers in those markets coming over here.
Oh, fantastic. Deepika, what are you most excited about?
2014 is going to be a
Hold
quite
it closer.
interesting year, I think. I'm sure you guys have heard about Oculus having the 75 million funding.
Sure.
I can't wait to play with those glasses on. And I want to be immersed in a world. I want these things to be flying around me. I am a person who believed that Matrix was just a movie. I want to get into that movie. And I'm really excited about that. The second thing I'm excited about is about the convergence. I don't think mobile is going to be smartphones and iPads anymore. Mobile as an ecosystem will evolve. The whole definition of mobile will include your Oculus glasses, probably, or it would be even including your your laptops, because mobile devices will be talking to something we know as cloud now. And if we can bring something like that in 2014 to the world, I think it will be fantastic. And I'm also excited about one more thing that Trip just mentioned about, when mobile gaming started, or the Facebook gaming took off, it was 51% of those demographics was skewed towards women. And a lot of people were unsure what this new market was and how to market games to them. Because normally, the way we have seen a gamer looks like an alpha guy sitting and shooting one-person shooter games and things like that. And here, there was a new market, which was willing to play games, which was discovered. And mobile consistently showed signs of where this market, like King.com, ask them what's their target user. And you get the answer that mostly it's women, right? And there's a reason why they're making so much money, because these women are somehow paying for it. I'm excited about the opportunities for emerging concept of what is a mobile women gamer. She could be a mother who actually buys games for her kids. She could be someone who entertains herself while she is looking at videos for fashion. Or she could be someone who actually loves hardcore games and has now access to them on a platform that is more viable, because maybe she wasn't buying Xbox, but now she has an iPad. And I think that creates a very interesting opportunity for, what will be the new audience that will generate. And I think that I want to chime in what was said about the emerging markets. We really think that a lot of gaming content that we have here will be viable in other markets, because those people are actually craving for something. Maybe the market is saturated here, but imagine you opened up this content to Brazil, to China, and other markets, and that would be really exciting. So I'm very excited. 2014 is the year.
All right. Hey, Brian, what are you most excited about for 2014?
Well, speaking of Xbox, I think it's interesting that we have two consoles that have just come out in this last month, and I'm interested to see how the ecosystem of the old console and the ecosystem of the new mobile rush, are they going to coexist, or are they going to eat each other up? I'm really interested to see how they are going to merge or not merge in this next year. I think that'll be something that'll be really interesting to see. Is it really a changing of the old guard, or can we all just get along?
PlayStation rules. I'm sorry, our DJ is actually the PlayStation video director. I had to put that button. Okay, and then 2014, what are you most excited about?
So one of the biggest proxies that I use to try and figure out what's going on in the market, sorry guys, is Lyft drivers. So let me try a different language. I take Lyft far too often to work, and it ends up costing me a lot of money, but I always make sure that I ask people what games they're playing, and specifically whether they've ever seen our ads in any of the games that they played and what they thought of them. Because that's something that's really important for us to know. And increasingly, every single person that I talk to has played a game that we work with and is playing a mobile game every single day, no matter what they look like. And it's not the people who traditionally played games back in the heyday of console gaming. It's truly mainstream, and I'm really, really interested to see what happens with the follow-acts of some of these huge successes in the last 18 months. The Gung-Hos, the Kings, the Supercells, they are going to be releasing their second games, and or not their second games, but in some cases their third. When they think about marketing, they don't think about it like CPA. They think about it like a brand, and they're becoming real companies, really big companies. And I really want to see what happens with these guys, and then who comes next onto the scene and challenges them, and what the model is that proves to be really effective. And then looking at the companies like Capcom and like EA, who have been dominant for so long, for 20, 30 years, the way that they're adapting to mobile and the strategies that they take really, really are interesting for us as well. It's being on the sidelines and helping them develop strategies to make more revenue is very, very cool. And I think the next year is where gaming really goes truly mainstream, where you're seeing games every single place that you look, product placement, all these things are happening really quickly, and it's a real legitimate industry at this point. It's huge.
Yeah, fantastic. We're going to press the mic down. We're coming on to our last question for the panel, and then we'll open it up to audience questions. I'm going to start this one with Dan, and then we'll go to Trip, and we'll go down the line. So one of the favorite features of the mobile mixers that we have had in San Francisco is what every dev should know. So I always ask the panel your top 3 takeaways of what every dev should know. And I met with Dan at Facebook on Friday, and I was really blown away by some of the things that Facebook is doing for devs, and it has nothing to do with the ads. The main question we always get is, how do we get a feature? How do we get an editorial feature with the press, an editorial feature on Pocket Viewer? How do we get an editorial feature with Apple and Google? How do we get an editorial feature on Facebook? Is that even possible? Is that even possible to get an editorial feature on Facebook? How do we get a feature in the news feed? So we had this conversation on Friday, and I thought it was very interesting. Dan started talking about Candy Crush and how they benefited actually from an editorial feature in the App Center. So I'd like you to comment on that. And then as well as how do you get a feature in the news feed? Because I would think that would be the most valuable thing anybody can get.
Yeah, I mean, there's an app center in Facebook's mobile app, and it's actually underutilized, and that's a promotional opportunity that we make available to everybody, big companies and small companies. And I would invite everyone to reach out and talk to us about it. That's something that we have used to good effect for a lot of companies, and that's something that we can make available. On a just an opportunistic basis when there's a great game. That's just that is the criteria there. A great game, preferably one that integrates Facebook in an interesting way. But anyone making an awesome game can get one of those slots.
And this is iOS or Android? And they just
Either, both.
And they just email you? How do they pitch Facebook for a feature in the App Center?
So I lead a partnerships team here in North America, and we will talk to you. I know, because I talk to developers every day, that there's often consternation about how to get on the radar of the holders of a platform. Our commitment to mobile developers is enormous. Come talk to us. I will give you my business card right after this. And there are lots of ways to reach out to us. But yeah, we are eager to see games and consider them for these editorial placements.
Now, what were you talking about Candy Crush? You said Candy Crush Saga had an editorial feature in the App Center when they first got started, and you felt that that was kind of a pivoting moment for the game.
Yeah, I mean, King has done a lot of extremely smart things with Facebook, and their placement in the App Center and in other sort of promotional slots is always a help. I actually think the bigger story of their success is just an extremely creative and delightful integration of Facebook throughout the game, throughout their marketing plan. They have really leveraged Facebook brilliantly. And we say that a lot. I spend a lot of time talking about King's use of Facebook, and it really can't be overstated. I mean, when you analyze the trajectory of their success, we are actually very glad to have been a big part of that story. So I would advise anybody to really have a deep look and deep think about just how they've leveraged Facebook from top to bottom.
Okay, that's great. So the last part of the what every dev should know from Dan is, can you get an editorial feature in the newsfeed? Or is that something that's going to come down the line at some point?
I mean, the short answer is our mobile app install ads. That's been an incredible business for Facebook. More importantly, it's been an incredible tool for developers. And it's actually been eye-opening for me personally and for us as a company to talk day after day with actually quite small development studios who are very profitably investing marketing dollars, whatever the size of the budget, in Facebook install ads. So that's a great tool. As far as features go, that's more the R&D project of publishing, and that's the use of some portion of our installs for games that are in the program. So that work is ongoing, but that's still a pilot phase project for now.
So one of the major benefits of entering into the publishing program with Facebook is to actually get a feature in the newsfeed.
Yeah, well, we'll commit newsfeed ads to partners in the publishing program.
Yeah, I think that's pretty exciting. That would be my most exciting thing in 2014. But I'm not repping a game right now. Okay, Mike's picture, a mobile game right now. Top 3 things that every dev should know.
Well, I'm not sure it's going to add up to 3, but I just want to point out what your choices are and maybe give an example of how to think about it a little bit differently. I think for the entire history of the game industry, it's been very difficult to invent a completely new game, to pioneer a new game mechanic and expect that to be successful. I could be wrong about this, but let's just say that your odds of releasing a mobile app and having a brand new mechanic that catches on becomes a big deal. It probably happens about 1 time out of every 1,000 tries. So naturally, the industry doesn't want to take that risk very often. There's a lot of creative people that don't think they're taking risks because they're sure they have the next Angry Birds on their hands. And that's a beautiful thing about the creative process. But the odds aren't very good. Naturally, the industry's always tried to avoid that risk. So that's why you get so many copycats. Because if there's a game mechanic that works, they'll just copy that. You have so many derivatives, well, they're not all going to do well. That obviously doesn't work. Another strategy that was workable for a while was to license a brand. I don't really think that works anymore because in a free-to-play market, yeah, you might try something because it's got a brand name on it, but if it isn't good, you're not going to return to it. You're not going to tell your friends about it. You're not going to spend money in it. So that probably worked better when you could get away with fooling people in a retail store with a brand on a mediocre game. Well, I just want to point out that not only are these odds really terrible, but then the odds of actually having people like the game when they're playing for free and then have it monetized, well, now you're up to odds like 1 in 10,000. It's really difficult. It's really difficult. We're not doing that. So everybody complains, by the way, about the game industry being such a hits business. I don't think that's what my new company's trying to do. And in my opinion, you could do the same thing.
Just try to switch it off. Is it on? Hello. No, it's on. No, it's I don't know how to turn it on. Maybe I just shut it off.
We'll try the isn't modern technology great? This is actually really mature, old technology we can't get it to work. Okay, so let's look at what happened with EA Sports. Did we invent football? No.
You did?
That's a risk reducer. Was there already an audience that cared about football?